Hello, all. I just wanted to pop on here to talk a little bit about the astrology that's going on. I know a lot of people have been going through a lot of upheaval in the past 24 to 48 hours. This is an intense week for many people that are being directly affected by this eclipse. But it always helps to know that this is the energy at play, and it's there for a reason that is for the eventual benefit. Even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment, it is going to bring you to a better place. Eclipses are about endings and new beginnings. And this one is just affecting people really deeply because, well, one, it's happening during Scorpio season when the veil is thinner. The eclipse is actually happening in Taurus, which is exactly opposite Scorpio, where the sun is, and the sun is shining a light on our subconscious, on those deep, dark emotional issues, what we're not fully aware of. And so this can bring huge revelations for some people, and also huge changes and upheavals for others, especially because of how some of the planets that are affecting this particular chart. So I think the best way is just for me to share my screen with you and share the chart. Okay. There we go. So you can see a little bit of what I'm talking about. So this right here, 16 degrees Taurus, this is where the lunar eclipse was on Tuesday morning, 3:01 a.m. Pacific, 6:01 a.m. Atlantic, I guess, East Coast time, and then 11:01 a.m. in London. Now, some people are saying 3:02, 6:02, but it just depends on who you talk to. It's in that 3:02 to 3:01 to 3:02 range for those on the Pacific, on the West Coast. So when we have a total lunar eclipse happen, it is, and it's that ending, right? The light stops and it ends one cycle, and then it is reborn into the new. So eclipses are always about this death and rebirth energy, but right now it's happening in two signs that are essentially, Scorpio is about death and rebirth, right? And that's exactly opposite of where this eclipse is happening. And this lunar eclipse is also going to be very much about our emotions, what we're comfortable with at the end of the day, what feels good to us. And it is happening when it is 2 degrees away. So we call that conjunct, 2 degrees away from Uranus. Uranus is where we find revolution. It is information coming in from beyond, sort of like this astrology information coming in from looking at the stars. It's new sciences, new technologies, and that means not science and technology like we've seen before. It is the disruptor. That is so much why tech has that disruption aspect to it, because Uranus rules tech. And so when we have this Uranus energy on this reboot, essentially, we're going to have things shaken up. We're going to have revolution come in some way in our lives, upheavals to really shift us out of the old and into the new, because Uranus is all about the new. And we finally are in a place where the new is winning. We've had some squares with Saturn. Well, we still do earlier in the year where Saturn has been winning, but right now Uranus is winning. The new is winning. We are rebooting into the new. And this is also, the moon is also right on the true node. And so for everyone, it's the collective journey of everyone, but it is also our own spiritual path. We are also getting a reboot into our soul's journey in this lifetime. Now, with all eclipses, the moon is exactly opposite the sun. And here the sun is in Scorpio, right? Scorpio, sex, death, rebirth, diving deep, going beyond. It's also about money and power and influence and Taurus is about personal resources and finances, but it's more step by step by step. It's very simple. It's our feet on the ground. It's how do we feel secure and safe and comfortable. Scorpio is the opposite, but complementary. Scorpio is about diving deeper than you've ever been. It's about going into the subconscious and revealing things, right? The sun is shining light on what is hidden, on those things that are so far back there, we don't even realize they're there, and we don't see how they are affecting our lives and our decisions and how we take action. And so to have that revealed is very empowering in some sense, though it may be shocking in the moment, especially if it comes very suddenly, if you're being highly affected by this particular eclipse, which some people definitely are. It can be shocking. But the sun in Scorpio is not just shining light on our core issues, our core beliefs that sort of guide the things we're not aware of. It's also shining a light on our values, because it's well, let's start with our communication. It's working with Mercury, which means it's going to be about how we communicate with others, and even more importantly, how we communicate with ourselves, getting clear on our communications. And Uranus is actually considered the higher octave of Mercury. So all that information coming in from out there, I kind of like to look at Uranus, these two little, what do you call them? Shapes here as sort of like satellites, picking up information from the beyond. And that is the higher octave of Mercury, which is just sort of antennae, picking up information in this realm more, so to speak. So we're shining a light on the way we communicate. And we're also shining a light on Venus, which is beauty and harmony and love. And so it's shining a light on what we value, what is important to us, what feels like love to us. It's also relationships, but that includes the relationship with ourselves, and how we communicate with ourselves is coming into that, obviously. But the relationship with ourselves and our relationship with others in many ways. And again, it also speaks to finance or our personal resources in some sense. So what feels like love to us, our own feminine nature. These are all things that are at play. And when we have an opposition like this, these big red lines seem like shocking in a way. It is an opposite, but opposites attract in a way. Opposites learn how it's an opportunity to work with each other. So here we have an opportunity to communicate in a much deeper way, shining a light on our subconscious while we're being connected to beyond the stars that we can see. We're getting a reboot on our emotions by also going deep into our subconscious and excavating, having the opportunity to at least get some of that stuff that we weren't fully aware of, to have that sort of come to the surface and have realizations. So this can be a very powerful eclipse. And it's funny, I heard a numerologist say, nothing will ever be the same. And I was already feeling like, wow, this is big. I have to talk to people about this, because I hadn't really looked ahead too much at this particular eclipse. And I was like, wow, I really need to get this information out to more people, because it's huge. And just knowing that all you're going through right now is going to be for your eventual good, and stopping what you were doing before and setting a new pattern, a new frequency of how you're going to move forward. Very important. Now, a lot of people are talking about this square that's happening to Saturn as being, a bad thing, because people see Saturn as limitation and restriction. I personally see Saturn as structure. And those limitations and those restrictions are the things that we put on ourselves when we're not comfortable with the structure we find ourselves in, because we haven't maybe put our own structures in place. It can be a lot of different things, but different for everyone. But I see this Saturn as very positive, because this Saturn is in Aquarius, and Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. So that makes it not so hard to begin with, because these guys are in cahoots already, or I should say not Saturn, but the Aquarius and the Uranus energies are in cahoots. And Saturn is sort of just there to say, it's a challenging aspect because it's a square, it's those red lines again, but it is just there to say, you know, what structures are you going to put in place to, from a new paradigm perspective, that's the Aquarian energy, the new and moving forward. So what structures are you going to put in place over this drama and tragedy that's going on? Because you are the driver of your own life. And if you're sick and tired of the way it's been before, you have an opportunity right now to go deeper, to get clear on your values, to communicate better with others, and even make sudden changes. That's a lot of this Aquarian and Uranus energy is making sudden changes to just shift from one place to another. I was there, I'm not there anymore, I'm here now. Now, I should say this eclipse energy, even though it happened on Tuesday morning, is going to be, we're still really in the crux of it, especially through tomorrow morning, but even through this whole week, we're really feeling the reverberations of this. And these reverberations are going to affect our lives intensely over the next 6 months. In fact, interesting side note, last month we had a full moon in at 16 degrees. Oh, I see. This is supposed to be at 16 degrees. Anyway, we had a full moon at 16 degrees. I realize what's happening here. I changed it for a client. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I had changed it to West Coast time for a West Coast client. Anyway, like I was saying, last month we had a full moon at 16 degrees. And for the next 6 months, we have full moons at 16 degrees. So this is a very powerful and potent point. And so I would like to also just mention the Sabian symbols, which the Sabian symbols are essentially symbolism for each degree. So this is the 16th degree of Taurus where this is happening. And so the symbolism for this particular degree is an old man attempting vainly to reveal the mysteries. And so this is what we are eclipsing, and what we're going through right now is really the symbolism of needing to share whatever may be the ultimate substance of our selfhood and bringing out personal realization, essentially. And opposite that, at 16 degrees Scorpio, is a girl's face breaking into a smile. And so I think just from those simple lines, the Sabian symbols are, they're just always interesting insights into different particular degrees. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, you can talk to me personally about it. But going back to this, these 16-degree moon points are really powerful in assisting us through this 6-month transition of completely changing our lives. But really the work starts this week, and you've already started it because you've experienced it. Whatever it is you've been experiencing this week, what is it that's been coming up that you're like, this needs to shift and this needs to change? Or how have you taken action differently than this week than normal? So just a couple of more points. So I've been talking about the challenges, the opportunities really, and the challenges. And there's one more challenge over here that I will get to, but I want to get to some ease and grace, some flow. So this opposition with all these mixing it up and going deep energies here and here are in a positive or flowing aspect to Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces. So Jupiter and Neptune are both rulers of Pisces. Jupiter is what we call the traditional or ancient ruler, and Neptune is the modern ruler. So here we have them next to each other, which doesn't always happen. They're both in retrograde, so they are reconsidering things. And they're in Pisces, where they're very comfortable. And Jupiter is about expansion, abundance, growth, luck. And Neptune is our ideals and our illusions. But illusions can be very positive if we are channeling them into spiritual understanding or creative pursuits. They can become delusions when they are connected to falling into drug addiction or other sort of addictions that keep us distracted as opposed to present. So Jupiter is also blowing up this Neptune energy, blowing up all this Piscean energy, which is the in-between time, right? And that really works with the subconscious very well. It's the idea that we're all connected, and it's hard to know where the boundaries are. So this can be a little bit challenging for people who have boundary issues, but we'll talk about that in a minute, how to circumvent that a little bit through structure and through noticing your own inner sun, so to speak. But so this just shows us that going into spiritual understanding, going into spiritual alignment, or just going into spiritual insights, connecting with yourself, whatever that means, whatever spiritual is for you, connecting to that God source creation energy within you, even because we are in a time of our truth. Uranus, even Aquarius, our truth and our sovereignty. And so finding a way to come to some personal growth through that spiritual connection and creativity is very important right now. Now, there is a harder aspect to this beautiful, dreamy energy where with Mars, so Mars is in the sign of communication, but also duality and storytelling. So you want to be careful that you're not creating stories that aren't true, but do take time to reconsider your stories, the stories you tell yourself, and reconsider how you assert yourself in the world. Mars is our masculine energy. It's how we take action on longer term goals. It's how we put ourselves out there in the world in that regard. And it can be warlike, but this is a time for us to turn that warlike energy inward, to go into the spiritual warrior sense and really examine those stories. Obviously, there's more to all of that, but I don't want to take too much time with the Mars. It is in retrograde, so we are reconsidering how we take action and assert ourselves. But it's also in a trine to those structures, right? Setting those new paradigm structures. And it's also in a more positive aspect to diving deep within Pluto in Capricorn, diving deep into the structures within our lives, what's not working in those structures. So this is a quick overview of a lot of what people are experiencing in a way. Just bringing it back to this shout out for those of us on the East Coast, it's at the midheaven, but it's not true for everyone, obviously, if you're in a different time zone. But Leo is the thing that people are like, well, Leo's being left out of the equation, but it's not because looking to your own solar energy. And we are being asked right now, we're going inward. And so that solar energy isn't as activated for everybody. It depends on your personal chart, obviously, and you can always reach out to me if you want to look at your personal chart in this, but we're reconsidering everything and going deep within the subconscious, within the mind, so we can get more clear on our own sovereignty, our own truth, and eventually let that come out and shine. And I think for a lot of you, that's already happening. I think for others of you, it's percolating, right? That energy is coming up. In the subconscious, we're starting to see maybe patterns that are going on, so we can process those, release those old, and shift into the new vibration that we wish to hold moving forward. It can be just like that right now and always, but we're being so supported right now to let go of that old stuff and shift into a new vibration. And by the end of this 6 months, the things that you work on now, that you're consciously working on now, will come to fruition, because that is the process of this cycle. So thank you so much for tuning in with me. If you are interested in learning more about astrology, I am teaching a last-minute class on Sunday from noon to 4 on Zoom. That's noon to 4 Eastern Standard Time. So a little bit earlier if you're on the West Coast, and in the evening if you are in London time or further out in Europe, but comfortable for most people. And I'm gonna start with the story of the signs, and we're gonna talk about sort of the progression of the signs and how that relates directly to the houses and directly to the planets. And then from there, you sort of have a basis of understanding. And we'll also be covering some of the other basics, like the elements and modes, and talk about these symbols a little bit. It's the very first things that you need to know, so that when someone does do a reading like this, you can have a better understanding of what's happening and what they're talking about, and start to understand how that can affect your own life and your own chart. So I hope that you will join us on Sunday if you feel so called. Many blessings, and I'm wishing you ease and grace through this somewhat challenging eclipse energy, and I just see you, holding you in the light, and see you transitioning into your most true, authentic, and empowered self, because that's what we're being supported to do right now. Blessings and namaste.